A nickel boom and infrastructure investment have brought steady growth to Indonesia. What does the era of President Widodo mean for Indonesia as he prepares to transfer executive power? Miraculous growth era. Indonesian President Joko Widodo has witnessed an era of strong growth and rapid development for Indonesia. In an interview, he revealed even greater ambitions. Mr. Joko Widodo is the type of person who takes action. Under the heat of 38 degrees Celsius, Mr. Jokowi plunged into a busy schedule of groundbreaking ceremonies for an airport, a school, 2 hospitals, a hotel and shopping center, as well as the new headquarters of the company. Central Bank of Indonesia. Since his first election victory in 2014, with the exception of the pandemic period, Indonesia's GDP has grown steadily by about 5% per year. Indonesia's combination of domestic market and natural resources is so good that if we have the right human resources and education, I believe it will be difficult for any country to compete with us, Mr. Nadiem Makarim, Indonesian Ministry of Education, Culture, Research and Technology, shared with the Financial Times. 2 important goals in Mr. Widodo's presidency are infrastructure and nickel. When he took office, demand for Indonesia's rich commodities was sagging due to the global recession, the country's infrastructure was underfunded and international investor enthusiasm for Indonesia was waning. His second term, starting in 2019, saw the most ambitious economic policies, especially the creation of Indonesia's electric vehicle and battery supply chain. By banning nickel ore exports by 2020, Widodo has forced foreign companies to build more local factories if they want to access Indonesia's rich nickel reserves. These plants are not only to refine nickel, but also attract more companies to build more of their supply chains in this country. Huge ambitions. Mr. Joko Widodo, President of Indonesia, has reinvigorated the Indonesian economy to make the country one of the most attractive investment markets in the world, thanks to the boom in demand for green energy technology. He took advantage of the country's richest and largest nickel reserves in the world to upgrade the domestic mineral processing industry and attract foreign investment. At the same time, this also contributes to breaking Indonesia's long-standing current account deficit. However, the transformation process is not yet complete as this politician has set an ambitious goal of making Indonesia one of the 5 largest economies in the world by 2045. Although the average growth rate under Mr. Widodo's term is slower than the previous decade, reaching only 5% per year, economists say that this stability has strengthened investor confidence. Private and consumer. Mr. Henry Wibowo, head of Indonesia Country Strategy and Research at J.P. Morgan, said the country's GDP per capita has increased and is nearly reaching $5,000. The data could boost the middle class and trigger a wave of consumer spending. It is an important growth driver and it will create many new sectors, Mr. Wibowo shared with the Financial Times. However, some economists believe that Indonesia should grow at a faster rate to achieve its goals. Mr. Chadib Basri, former Indonesian finance minister, said that the economy needs to grow at a rate of 6 to 7% until 2050 to avoid being stuck in the group of middle-income countries. A key driver of Indonesia's growth is nickel reserves, a key component of electric vehicle (EV) batteries. Mr. Widodo banned nickel ore exports in 2019, part of a strategy to develop the domestic EV supply chain. The move has given added impetus to the metals and mining industries by forcing refiners and battery manufacturers to set up factories on Indonesian territory. At the same time, this move also increases the value of nickel exports. Customs data shows Indonesia's nickel exports increased from $1.4 billion in 2014 to nearly $22 billion in 2022. Mr. Widodo also introduced similar export controls on bauxite, the ore used to produce aluminum. The government also plans to expand copper export controls this year. Promoting the production of higher value-added products has expanded the manufacturing export base and added resilience to Indonesia's current account balance, said Mr. Kai Weong, expert ASEAN economy at BofA Securities, shared with the Financial Times. Can Indonesia become an economic powerhouse? FDI capital has poured heavily into Indonesia since the nickel export ban took effect. Among them, companies such as Ford, Hyundai, Chinese metal group Tsingshan Holdings, BYD, pledged to invest billions of dollars in this country. In 2023, investment in Indonesia grows by 3.7%, reaching an all-time high of $47.3 billion, after increasing by 46.6% in 2022. About one-third of FDI capital, mainly from China, poured into Indonesia's mining and metals industries. Douglas Ramage, CEO of consulting firm Bauer Group Asia, said investors have recognized significant reforms in the investment environment. President Widodo's administration has invested more in infrastructure than any previous administration, building networks of roads, railways, dams, and ports across 17,500 islands. Infrastructure remains the government's top priority, said Lavanya Venkateshwaran, senior Southeast Asia economist at OCBC Bank. Improved connectivity through larger road, rail, and airport networks and greater use of these networks will help reduce logistics and distribution costs. Investment in infrastructure has contributed to economic growth and investment attraction. Besides, it also causes state-owned companies to incur huge debts and becomes a burden that Mr. Widodo's successor will have to deal with. The current account transition is a very important macro story for Indonesia in the coming decades, as it will help maintain currency stability and help the country stand out from most markets emerging, Mr. Wibowo once said. Evan Laxmana, senior fellow at the International Institute for Strategic Studies, IISS, in Singapore, said Widodo had delivered on key promises on infrastructure and trade. However, he said that to attract more international investment, Indonesia needs to do more to ensure business rights and implement reforms in the management apparatus. A lot of experts and economists believe that Indonesia can and should grow at more than 5%, but I'm not sure the country can enter the top 5 economies by 2045, he said.